is a great lead in to my friend and yours. Amy, how are you doing tonight, girl? It's good to see you.
Good tonight.
Oh, great. I'm so glad you could be here tonight and you're rested up and you're ready to chill out and have a nice little chat here.
Anytime for you, April.
You're a sweetheart, man. It was cool to have you on. It was a little over a year ago. It was almost actually 2 years. It'll be 2 years this coming March that you were on the triple negative breast cancer broadcast. And of course, on that broadcast, we only ever have triple negative breast cancer survivors. And on this show, we have any kind of breast cancer survivor there is. But there's been a high demand to have Amy back on the show. I was telling Amy yesterday, guys, that the board and a lot of the members of the social media team have been asking about Amy, and they're like, we need to have Amy on again. We need to have Amy on. It's very popular with the crew, and a good friend of mine for, I think we've known each other like 20 years or something now, right? Yeah.
Long time.
Yeah, so we're like 22 now is what the deal is.
Yeah. I know I met you before 2000, so it's got to be over 20 years.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. But you had, I mean, I remember when all this went down, I think I came over to your place just a few days after you were diagnosed, but I know that you've told the story before to a lot of our audience, but it was, it's been some time, so I'm sure we've got a lot of new people here. Would you mind taking us through a little bit of how it all happened and how you found out you had breast cancer?
Yes. So I had been having a concern for a while. The women in my family have something called fibrocystic breast disease, which makes your breast tissue very dense. And they tell women to do like your monthly checks or your mammograms when you get to 40. But when you have fibrocystic breast disease, it makes it difficult to feel any kind of change because it feels like your breasts are always thick, or you'll have cysts and they come and they go. Well, I had something that didn't quite go away. Went in to have a mammogram, and it had already progressed to stage 3 breast cancer at that time.
And
they tested it and it was triple negative breast cancer.
right. And what year was that? How long ago was that?
That was January of 2019.
Gotcha.
So they call that your primary cancer when they find it at first. I went through the typical treatment that you go through for triple negative breast cancer, which is some chemo treatments, then surgery, then radiation. They don't always recommend radiation. It depends on what stage you are. But I did do the full course of radiation. And I was in remission.
And how long? Yeah, and how deep into it were you? So it was like July of 2018, and then you had radiation. And at what point were they like, okay, you're in remission?
They told me I was in remission in February of this year.
Gotcha. Okay, so 2020. Okay, gotcha.
And then, I was actually feeling great.
I was you were looking great. I mean, shoot, you look great now. My gosh.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was always very athletic. I skated on a roller derby team. I skated a game. I was running again. I was running 5Ks, preparing to run a 10K. And I'm thinking, I'm feeling good. Then, I must be, on my way to, being cancer free for a good long time. And my doctor says, let's go for a scan. And they found something. they found cancer in my lungs.
Oh my gosh.
I was completely asymptomatic. I had absolutely no symptoms whatsoever. Not a cough, not shortness of breath.
No pain, nothing weird. Yeah.
And I skated a roller derby game. I mean, goodness.
Wow.
Which means I had to pass all of my skills tests again and my endurance requirements. It was a complete shock, not only to me, but my doctor. So then I began my life as a stage 4 cancer patient.
And so what date was it that you learned about this cancer in your lungs?
June 30th of this year.
So about 2 years, exactly 2 years or around 2 years from your original diagnosis.
A year and a half.
Yeah.
Year and a half.
Okay. Got you. Wow.
And so, we're dealing with all this COVID stuff.
Oh God. Yeah. Making it more
difficult. Which affects
difficult.
people's lungs. and now I'm extremely scared, you know. I'm like, oh goodness, you know, if I catch this stuff, I'm going to die for sure. So, I mean, I guess that's something new that all cancer patients are having to deal with now, is on top of, you know, their treatments, and if they're going to survive them, is this COVID stuff. So I started they immediately put you in chemo again. They have different drugs that they use when you're on when you have stage 4 cancer. When you have primary cancer, they kind of go in and kill it with fire. The chemo drugs are a lot harsher, whereas the chemo drugs for stage 4 are, they consider your quality of life a lot more. I had really no problems, no side effects at all with my stage 4 chemo medicines. They did cause some hair loss, but as you can see, I still have hair.
Yeah, your hair looks great too. Yeah.
I did a new procedure that they're trying on some chemo patients, where you wear a cold cap
Yeah.
when you get your chemo. And so I've lost about half my hair, but you can't tell. I have a lot of hair anyway, naturally. But I was able to hang on to my hair because I mean, last time I did chemo, I was completely bald. If you have some of the pictures of my last interview, I was wearing a wig.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I was actually able to hang on to a lot of my hair. So I've been telling a lot of the women in my cancer support group, you should try this, because I mean, it helps you kind of hang on to some of your dignity, and it's a lot less emotionally difficult if you can just, you know, get up and not feel so like you look so sick.
Yeah,
You know?
like, so just kind of retain some normalcy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and a routine to your life. And I know the American Cancer Society has got a program where they help women learn to like apply their makeup, draw their eyebrows on,
Yes, look good,
do
feel
all your
better.
hair.
Look good, feel
Yeah,
better.
that one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I strongly encourage women going through
Oh
any
yeah.
type of cancer treatment to look at that,
Yeah, and
because
it's a free program too. Yep.
and it's very helpful to women going through, because everything changes when you go through chemo. It's not easy. So I went through 2 cycles of the typical chemo medicine that they put you on when you have a stage 4. They treat the cancer systemically. It's supposed to, you know, go through your body, and it didn't work very well for me, which is something that you find with triple negative cancer. Is it's very chemo resistant and it's very aggressive. And that's where breast cancer can stick. It came in. You worked very closely with Dr. Joyce Oshaughnessy, and the last time I was on your show for a triple negative day, she was talking about a clinical trial. And one of the things they do when you have stage 4 cancer is they do what's called a foundation 1 test. And they take a piece of your tumor and they genetically analyze it to find out the specific DNA of your tumor. And there's all sorts of like markers and pathways that they discover with this test. And then they match you up for clinical trials. Well, it just happens that I matched up for that clinical trial. So then my next step was to get in touch with you and then try to get in touch with Dr. Oshaughnessy. And I am now on one of her clinical trials.
That's so amazing. It's so crazy, Amy. I know you and I've probably talked about it a few times. Is that, you know, in working with Dr. O'Shaughnessy, most of the time the patients that are receiving benefit of the research and trials, I don't ever meet them or get to know them or anything like that, because you know the patient privacy laws and things like that. And I'm sure if I, you know, ask them to, hey, find somebody who wants to come and talk, and you know we want to do that at some point for a lot of the programs that we donate to. But you're the first person that I've known personally that's on one of the trials, and I was so happy that we could connect you with Dr. O'Shaughnessy. I mean, that's what we're here for, you know, is when somebody reaches out to us and they're in a situation like you're in. is connecting them to a clinical trial that will work for them. And so I was so happy that we were able to bridge that gap. And it's interesting to me that the stage 4 chemo treatment, you said is a lot more mild than like you said, they throw kind of fire at the first go round, and now they just kind of like chill. So is the chemo treatment that you're having now, is it the same as the other treatment, in that you're sitting in a chair and it's an infusion and you have a port? Is it all those kinds of things?
Not yet.
Okay.
So this new procedure for the clinical trial is sort of a primer step. You take it by pill, 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening. And it is a sort of like a preparatory step that makes your cancer more receptive to the chemo. So I'm going to be on this as long as Dr. Oshaughnessy says that I need to be on it. I'm not sure how long. And then they go in with like a 1-2 punch. And then that will be the actual, the typical chemo where you sit in the chair and you receive the intravenous chemo and through a chemo port.
I've heard her refer to this kind of preemptive thing as like priming the other chemo drug. So right now you're being primed for the other. Is that right? Yeah.
Right. So if you think of the cancer, like you've seen those high-speed chase videos before on TV on those shows, and if you think of the cancer as like the guy trying to get away, and if you think of the freeway and then the cops blocking all the exits, that's sort of what this primer does, is it blocks all the escape routes for the cancer.
That's a great way to put that.
Yeah. Then you can come in with the chemo, and not only the chemo, but the immunotherapy, which is like the latest, greatest thing that they're doing with cancer these days to actually cure it, which is the immunotherapy. And I believe the FDA just approved the use of a new chemo drug, or a new immunotherapy drug, where they combine it with chemotherapy to help benefit stage 4 cancer patients.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a lot to go through. It's funny because it's like, you told a big chunk of your story in about 15 minutes, but there was probably a lot of pieces in there, like when you had your first treatment, that were really difficult. What do you recall about your first treatments of chemo when you were first diagnosed with breast cancer that were really difficult?
So, I mean, there's the obvious where like all your hair falls out.
Right.
That is probably one of the most traumatic things that you go through. Everybody reacts differently to chemo. I know that you and I had the same chemo drugs, and that you didn't have any nausea with your chemo, but I did. In fact, I would get so sick that I couldn't eat for 5 days straight.
Well, and I remember we probably had this conversation, when I first was told I was going to have chemo, Dr. Oshaughnessy said to me, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get sick. And she's like, no, getting sick is days of the olden days. And she was like, they had me packed up on medications though. And I'm sure things, this was 10 years ago for me. So I know things change, and there's no telling. Maybe they gave me some stuff that now they're like, oh no, don't do that. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, I had very specific drugs. Did they have you on those drugs too, and they just didn't work, or did they not even?
Yeah, I was allergic to one of the anti-nausea medicines that a lot of the patients take. So that was kind of off the table for me.
Yeah.
I did test out a new anti-nausea medication, which is a patch that you wear and it stays on for several days. And that actually worked really nicely. I haven't seen that so much because it's expensive, but it was nice because I didn't have to remember to wake up and take my medicine. You really just want to sleep when you're trying to get over chemo.
Yeah, that's the thing about chemo is like, a lot of people talk about being sick or other side effects, losing your hair and stuff. But the biggest one is, you're just staying tired all the time. Yeah.
Just like when you have the flu and you just want to stay in bed. That's what it feels like.
Exactly. Did you have any genetic testing at any point in time?
Yeah, so that's one thing they do now for I don't know about other types of cancer, but for sure with breast cancer is they give you a genetic test at the time that you're diagnosed. They want to find out if you have certain cancer markers like the BRCA1, BRCA2, because that can predispose you to your cancer showing up in different organs in your body. Like, for example, I know some of the BRCA genes, they will go ahead and remove your ovaries, because it can also show up
Yeah.
in ovarian cancer.
I
Um,
remember Dr. O'Shaughnessy wanted me to have a hysterectomy if I had one of the BRCA genes. She was like, just take it all
right.
out. I'm like, whoa. So yeah, it does. You're right. It majorly predisposes you to all that. It's pretty crazy.
Mhm. I have a friend that has never had
Uh-huh.
cancer, but she's BRCA positive, and
Oh
she
wow,
had both a double mastectomy and a hysterectomy.
wow.
Um, so that's some of your options that you have. I think famously, like Angelina Jolie had a double mastectomy because she's BRCA positive.
Yep,
So
exactly.
there's that.
But you
But
weren't found to have any of it, were you? Yeah.
no cancer genes whatsoever.
Eh,
I'm just
yeah, you're.
dumb luck.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I know you and me both. So whenever you did that genetic testing, I know when I had the genetic testing, they had me do. I want to say it was called like some kind of kind of like a family tree, but you put on there who you know what they each person died from if they had passed
Mhm.
away, and you put on there the people who had cancer. Did you find a lot of cancer in your family when you did that?
So not everyone in my family was lucky enough to have good health care. They would a lot of my older relatives that have passed away, really didn't know exactly what caused their death, but we suspect, yes, that some of them had cancer. We
Right.
knew for sure that my grandmother had cancer. She's actually still alive. She survived her cancer. She had endometrial cancer. So it could be related. We don't know.
Yeah, and I'm sure it'll be one of those things. That's what I always say about me is that, there was a lot of cancer on my dad's side of the family, so I have a feeling there's a gene that they just haven't pinpointed yet.
Hmm.
That's on my dad's side of the family. I don't want to get too far along without saying that Catastrophic is in the house, another fellow roller derbier, and she said, I didn't realize. She said, Amy, I didn't realize you had fought and passed your skills test again. Sending so much love. You're a beautiful, badass sister and warrior. And she said,
Thank you.
P.S. You look amazing. So big shout out from
Aw,
Kat. And Kat herself is a breast cancer survivor in addition to a roller derby chick and a drummer. So pretty cool to have her here tonight. She's also in our Survivors Rock, a breast cancer can stick it community. So I'll ping that here in the little chat here in a few minutes. And Jen says, that's awesome. When I finished with chemo in 2012, they were just then starting to talk about ice caps. So very cool. And
it's very recent.
yeah, I've been hearing a lot about that, and I know a lot of people who also do the icing of their feet or their hands to prevent neuropathy,
Mhm.
which is a common side effect from chemo as well. And none of that stuff was really around when I was going through chemo 10 years ago, but I have to tell you, I don't know if I would do the cold cap because I have a very low tolerance for cold, man. Is it bad when you're wearing that, or is it bearable?
It wasn't, I've had some other cancer patients tell me that, 'cause one of the things that happens after you go through chemo is your body is very sensitive to heat and cold in different ways. Um, and I actually liked having the cold on my head because I would get headaches. And it felt nice to me. But yeah, some people, you have a real sensitive scalp, especially when your hair is coming out. So some people, it's not possible to do it. It's way too painful. But commonly, they will ice your hands and feet. I did get some neuropathy where it feels like the outside of my palm is numb all the time. So um, that's why they have you do that. It has to do with the way the chemo goes into your capillaries.
Gotcha. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of all over the place. I'm kind of thinking about some of the different things that you've mentioned along the way. You talked about that you had radiation, and as you know, I didn't have radiation. Whenever we did the Drumathon broadcast last month, Ricky Rocket was talking about that he had radiation, and it's a very claustrophobic thing where they kind of have this thing over his head. I mean, he had oral cancer, so it's different, but had this
Okay.
thing to where he was kind of mounted to the table. Can you describe what the radiation process was like for someone
Mhm.
with breast cancer?
Yes. So what they do is they want to go in and radiate the area that was affected, and they draw these Sharpie lines on you, and they tell you not to wash them off, and they give you like these stickers to these like clear tape stickers to put over them. And they go in and they can give you these little tattoos that are just like little pinprick tattoos. You wouldn't be able to find them on me if you looked. Um, but you have to sit very still. And then the machine looks kind of like if you've ever been in a CT scan. And then it has a mechanism that comes over it, and it sounds like a ray gun. It sounds like you're getting, boop, 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 the ray gun. And you don't feel it at all. Until like I had 25 treatments. It took 5 weeks. You don't really feel it until the end. You get like this, you start turning lobster red, and it makes you really, really tired. Um, your skin hurts all the time. Like you had a really bad sunburn, and it stays like I'm still pink even though I finished my radiation a year ago. You can still tell where I had it. I don't know if you can see, but the part of it goes up onto the neck, and you can see like that part of my neck is darker than this part. So
Wow. And
that's, yeah.
yeah, I've seen some really scary pictures from some of the women who've gone through radiation where showing how red their skin gets and burnt, like just burnt. I'm like, gosh, I'm really glad I have to go through that, but I hate that
Mine got
people do.
infected. It was
Really?
really bad.
Oh gosh, were you hospitalized or anything?
No, they just put me on some antibiotics and it cleared it up pretty quick.
Yeah.
But it was very painful.
Do you still have your port in from when you had your treatment the first time? So you still have your
Yeah.
port there? Yeah. And people are always asking about that. It's kind of weird. I noticed that when I had mine, I never wanted to touch it, but does it bother you to touch it?
No, the only thing that would bother it is if like I was wearing a heavy purse or bag.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have to be careful and put the strap on the other side. My massage therapist, who is oncology certified, knows not to, rub around there and maybe dislodge it or something. You can't do stretches that like pull your chest apart,
Yeah.
because they don't want you to disconnect anything inside there, because you would have to have another surgery to
Yeah.
have it fixed.
Yeah. It's so cool to me that you're able to do all your roller derby stuff and stay so active
Mhm.
while you're going through treatments and while you have a port and all this stuff. And the other thing is, Amy, you just seem like you have a positive attitude to me. Like you're just kind of like, hey man, this is what I'm doing. I'm just gonna plow forward and we'll see what happens, right? And
Well,
just
yeah, and shout out to my church. They keep me really positive.
so good.
Pastor Gaffney at Fairview Baptist,
Oh good.
they are always keeping me really positive, and they're watching tonight. So thank you.
Oh man, those church families are the best when you're going through breast cancer treatment, any kind of trial or tribulation. It's great to have a church family like that. That's so freaking cool. That's very
And my
cool.
roller derby league at North Texas Roller Derby, they have been so awesome with taking care of me, like bringing me groceries. It's been super hard during this whole pandemic because, I mean, no, you can't get hugs from people. I mean, it's crazy, and you have to watch your friends drop off food on the porch instead. But I mean, I'm so thankful for everything everyone's done.
Well, it sounds like you're doing all the right things and being safe because those people watching may not realize it, but when you're going through chemo treatment or as a cancer survivor, your immune system is compromised, and so you are more likely to catch an illness than someone else, and then you're more likely to have it worse if you do catch it. So it's so important when you're going through treatment to keep yourself safe. I remember when I went through it in 2010, and there was never even a thought in our mind of a pandemic of all things, and I went out wearing a mask just out with my friends because I didn't want to get sick, because
Mhm.
I knew so many people who had been going through chemo and who had got some minor like strep throat or something like that and ended up in the hospital because it's just you don't have the protective mechanisms. Your white blood cell count is so low, you can't fight infection as easily, so it's a lot more dangerous. So I'm really glad that you're being cautious, but at the same time, you're like, hey, I don't want to just sit around and do nothing. And so you've been doing a few things. Tell everybody, like, you've been active and going out and traveling some here and there. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that you're doing to stay busy during the pandemic.
Yeah, so if you've ever seen that meme of the blonde lady looking at the really difficult math problem, you got to sit there and do your cost benefit analysis of, oh, can I do this or not? Um, I do ask my friends to get COVID tests before we, go on a trip together, because I mean, you're in a car with somebody, you can't get 6 feet away from them. They wear masks. Nobody fights me on this.
That's really
Uh,
good. Really good.
yeah. And I've chosen to do things that are, safer, like going camping, doing things out in the wilderness where you're not at a concert or something like that, where you might, not be able to step away from the next person. I've really enjoyed, going out. One thing that I've done is I visited a ghost town. I'm like, hey, there's not going to be anybody there, so we're a ghost town.
That's awesome. Where's this ghost town you went to?
It's west of Fort Worth. It's a place called Thurber, Texas. I think the population's like maybe 50. They have a restaurant there. It's pretty much the only place to eat in between Fort Worth and Abilene. And there's an old like smokestack there. You can't miss it from the highway.
I know. Oh, wait, it's on the right hand side. The smokestack is on the right hand side. I know the one you're talking about.
Fort Worth.
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah, I've never stopped there, but I know exactly what you're talking about. You
There's
mentioned
some YouTube videos you can look at.
Yeah. I thought for a second you were like Ricky Rocket. Not just it just so happens that some of the things you're saying are reminding me of him, but he does this thing called legend tripping, where he goes around and finds legends in towns or locations and goes and tries to debunk them and stuff like that. And I was thinking maybe Amy's out there doing that. It seems like something you might like to do. You should look into see where he's gone, because I think he's gone some places in Texas, and check that out and have fun with that. But that's cool. And I'm so glad to hear that people aren't giving you a hard time. I think, in my experience, I'm not going out at all right now. And, I've been really in close contact with my doctor about it to see what she wants me to do. And, generally, most people, she's like, it's not that big of a deal. But for me, she wants me to stay in as well. So I haven't been going out much either. And, it's hard because I think some people, don't understand and get offended at times when you're like, hey, I can't hug you, or can't shake your hand, or, I need you to wear a mask or whatever.
I have a sign on my door that says, I have cancer. You were going to wear a mask or I'm not opening the door.
Yeah.
I only had one evil food delivery driver that literally threw the food at my door.
Oh my gosh, come on. Yeah,
yes.
we put on all of our deliveries, we just leave it at the door, and then we have one of those little doors in your door that's like a little square. And you can open it a little, you're like, hey, but it's up here by your face, and so you just open it up and you're like, hey, what's up? And so I'll just open it up and like, hey man, just leave it at the doorstep, And so everybody's been really cool about that, but I have had a couple of run-ins in the very few amount of times that I've been around people, and had people get offended, and it's hard because you have a really great excuse. You're in the middle of treatment. People better listen, but other people who are high risk, it's people just don't understand, and so everybody should be respectful. And I'm actually to the point of like, there's some check presentations that we're going to have here soon, and I'm like, hey, I am so grateful for your donation and everything. I am high risk, and I can't come to the check presentation unless it's this way, and I don't feel comfortable asking you to do it, but I'm just explaining it. And if y'all are okay with doing that, that's cool, but you don't have to. But if you don't do it, I'm not able to come, is all I'm telling you. And so they've been really cool and been really blessed to be able to do that and still get the donations for breast cancer.
One thing I did was I started making masks, and I
remember
have
seeing
them
that.
available outside my door. So if you show up and you need a mask, I have one for you.
That is brilliant. I'm missing some comments again. I'm really bad about this here. Let me give some shout outs here. We've had a lot of people join, Amy, while you've been chatting here. Yeah, so Gail is here, Kelly is here, Gail Street, Kelly O'Connell, Timmy Lopez, Sue is here. What's up, Sue? Roy is in the house. Roy says, "We are praying for you, Amy. You got this."
Oh, that's Pastor.
Is awesome. Jerry Donaldson is here. Hey, Jerry, what's up? Daniel Michael is back in the house. Dina McCutcheon, a great volunteer and friend who went through my breast cancer with me, is here. Hello, Dina. John is here. Dawn is here. Roy says, she is a warrior. Sherry Harvey is here. Rosie Tavino, Rick Andrews, Jeff, and Giovanni are in the house. Man, you bring out the lively crew, man. I'm telling you what. You know, one of the things I was thinking of when I thought about us meeting tonight, Amy, is I'm wondering, is there one thing that you want to tell women, or that you want to tell women who maybe aren't going for that annual mammogram, or maybe somebody who's newly diagnosed? Is there, what's the message that you want to send to those people?
For the newly diagnosed, never give up. I have actually met people who don't want to go through treatment, and that really breaks my heart, because I mean, yeah, the treatment's hard, but it can save your life. And for the people that haven't been checked, or maybe they're afraid they don't have money for a check, there are services out there that will help you. Get in touch with Breast Cancer Can Stick It if you're in the Dallas area. Ask me if you need help finding a mammogram. I can help you find somebody that can put you in touch with help for a mammogram. It's harder to get a mammogram if you're under 40. Do your self checks at home. If you have fibrocystic breast disease like I did, understand your risk factor. You may want to get in for a baseline mammogram sooner. It would have been life-changing for me had I done that. I wished I had done it.
Yep, that's a very good point. I think we've talked about so many of these different things, but I had the fibrocystic breast, and my doctor just pretty much demanded that I be screened every 6 months. And like you mentioned at the top of the broadcast, it just makes it so much harder to find breast cancer when you have fibrocystic breast, and then you're constantly going in because when you are doing self-exams and you have fibrocystic breast, you're always finding something. Like you were saying, you're finding cysts and different things, and they're aspirating and biopsying and aspirating and over and over and over. And then, it just makes it harder to find breast cancer, and it also just puts you at higher risk for breast cancer as well. So it's so important to know your breasts, and especially if you have fibrocystic breast, to be taking steps to really keep an eye on things. There's actually an organization, I don't know if we talked about it before, called Are You Dense? And it has to do with dense or fibrocystic breasts, and their kind of charge is to make it where it's required that doctors tell their patients if they have fibrocystic disease, so that they will know additional steps that they might need to take for their breast health, which I think is a really cool charge to have. So they're called Are You Dense?
That's great.
Yeah, it's a really cool organization.
Because I wasn't told that.
Yeah. And I was lucky when I was told that. I was 34, and so I had those screenings every 6 months, and that's why they caught mine at stage 1, was because they demanded that I go for those screenings every 6 months. So know your breast, know your body. If you see anything weird, you gotta let somebody know. And I'm so glad that you did, and that you started on it, and that you're powered through and doing everything that they're telling you to do, Amy. And clearly we're gonna have to have you back on again to get the rest of the story after you've gone through the second part of the chemo, and you're not sure exactly when that phase will begin.
No, I'm due to be scanned at the end of December, and so they usually scan you every 6 weeks for this trial, which is good for me, because otherwise I'd only be getting scanned every 3 months.
Right.
So I'm thankful for that, and they sort of make a decision each time you're scanned what your next step is.
Yeah, that's good. And I know you're seeing Dr. O'Shaughnessy every 2 weeks now, and so she's keeping a close eye on you with all of that. So I'm so glad that.
Awesome, smart lady.
Yeah,
Love
she
her.
is. Yeah. And you guys out there, you can Google her. You can go to our YouTube page, and there's several interviews with Dr. Joyce Oshaughnessy. She's just amazing, so brilliant, and she has a very personal connection to fighting cancer. And she's very passionate about what she does. And that's just lucky for you and me both that she is, because we get to take advantage of those different things that she has going on as far as treatment plans and clinical trials and whatnot. So girl,
Yeah, she has experience getting chemo medications through FDA approval. She is a good person to have on your side.
absolutely. Christy Joe is in the house, and she says, Amy, you are an inspiration and so informative. Thank you. You are beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
And then Mert is here and says, you ladies rock. Thanks, Mert. We love you, dude. And then we have Heather says, kicking it in its ass, Pippi. That's so awesome.
Oh, I bet that's one of my old teammates.
Yep. And then Grace says, hey, Amy, I am a triple negative breast cancer metaplastic. Good luck on the trial. So I don't know, Grace, if you're in our Survivors Rock, a breast cancer can stick it community. I'm going to pop that into our conversation here right now, so you can join if you aren't already part of that group. We would love to have you in there. And this is a group, guys, that's just for breast cancer survivors. So if you are a breast cancer survivor, or you have a friend that's a breast cancer survivor, please join our group. We share our experiences there. We have Josie, who is actually a nurse to Dr. O'Shaughnessy, who can help navigate different things should you need it. And Mary says, I am here supporting Amy. And Mary Elizabeth McNeely is here supporting Amy.
Yeah.
Woohoo! Well, girl,
Thank you, Mary Elizabeth.
yeah. And every time we have these shows, I always want to ask everybody, if they could tell us something positive that has come out of their journey through breast cancer. What would that be for you?
I have found out how cared for I am.
That is a really good thing to feel loved and know that you are loved.
Yeah, I've never felt alone.
I'm so glad. And you are loved like mad, girl, by lots of people. Think about you every single day. Man, thank you so much for joining us tonight, Amy. And we're going to have you back again in a few months and check in on you. And even if I'm just like cruising about my day, I know my team members are going to be like, where's Amy? Get Amy back on the show again. So you'll definitely hear from us again, and we'll have you on to get an update on how you're doing. And I know that you and I will keep in touch personally, and sending you prayers. And I love you every step of the way, girl. Okay.
I got you in my phone.
Yeah, you can find me any day of the week and twice on Sunday.
I accidentally butt dialed you one time, and you answered it like late at night.
I'm like, I'm here. What's up? What's up? Where's the fire? I'm on my way. I'm there for you, girl. Anything you need, okay?
Love you.
I love you too. Thanks for joining us tonight, girl.
Mm-hmm.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, everybody. Give it up for our girl, Amy, in the house. She rocks, man. Thank you so much for joining, Amy. So fantastic to see her.